There are two types of Tesla owners in winter. One is the owner who panics every time the range drops, who posts online that the car is useless in the cold, and who seriously considers selling it by February. The other barely notices winter at all. The difference comes down to 6 habits. The biggest of those habits costs about 15 cents a night from a regular wall outlet. The good news is every single one of these is an easy fix. Number 1. Blasting the cabin heater instead of using your seat heaters. I get it, it's freezing outside, you hop into your Tesla, and the first thing you do is crank the thermostat up to 75. It feels great. But here is what that is actually costing you. Your Tesla cabin heater can pull up to 7 kilowatts at maximum. That is roughly 18 to 20 miles of range burned every single hour just to keep the air warm inside the cabin. The seat heater, on the other hand, draws about 50 watts on high. The steering wheel heater draws about the same. You could run every seat heater in the car plus the steering wheel heater and still use less than 500 watts total. That is about 15 times less energy than the cabin heater alone. I started tracking this on my own commute a couple winters ago, and the difference was honestly kind of shocking. On days when I left the cabin heat cranked, I was burning through range like crazy. The day I switched to seat heaters and dropped the thermostat to 65, I picked up close to 40 miles of usable range on the same drive. Tesla actually backs this up in the owner's manual, so it is not some internet hack. It is how the car was designed to be used in cold weather, but what you are doing at night might be costing you even more than the heater. Number 2. Leaving your Tesla unplugged overnight in the cold. I can't tell you how many times someone has asked me why their range tanked overnight. And almost every time the first question I ask is whether they left the car plugged in. The answer is usually no. When your Tesla sits unplugged in freezing temperatures overnight, two things happen. First, the battery chemistry slows down, which locks away a chunk of your available energy. You'll see that blue section show up on your battery bar with the snowflake icon the next morning. Second, Sentry mode and all the background systems are still pulling real energy the whole time the car is sitting there. Most of that displayed loss on the screen isn't actually consumed energy. The cold is temporarily hiding range that comes back once the battery warms up during driving. But the downstream effects are very real. You start your morning with no regenerative braking, the cabin heater has to work overtime because everything is ice cold, and the whole drivetrain runs less efficiently from that very first mile. Tesla's recommendation is dead simple, and I tell every owner the same thing. Keep it plugged in whenever you're not driving. Even a regular 120-volt household outlet gives enough power to keep the battery warm and offset that overnight drain. And if you can't plug in, turn off Sentry mode at home and stop checking the Tesla app every hour. Every time you open that app, it wakes the car up and burns more energy while it sits in your driveway. Alright, this next one is the one I wish I could get every Tesla owner to do. I personally think it's the difference between hating your Tesla in winter and barely noticing the cold at all. Number 3. Not preconditioning your battery before you drive. Walking out to a cold-soaked Tesla and just driving off is like trying to sprint the second you roll out of bed. Everything is stiff, slow, and running at half capacity. A cold battery just cannot move energy around efficiently, which means it cannot deliver power the way it normally does, and it cannot accept energy back through regenerative braking. I have seen the numbers on this across a bunch of different cars, and it is always the same story. Cold starts use nearly double the energy of the same route when the car is preconditioned first. We are talking 700 plus watt hours per mile versus around 400 watt hours per mile. Exact same drive, exact same weather. Open your Tesla app and turn on climate about 30 to 45 minutes before you head out the door. If you are plugged in, all of that preheating energy comes straight from the wall. Your battery warms up, your cabin is toasty, and you have full regenerative braking from the very first mile. There is an even better way to handle this, and that is scheduled departure. Set it up once in your car settings. Put in the time you usually leave for work, and the car figures out the rest. It times your charging to finish right before you leave, so the battery is warm from the charging process itself. It heats the cabin, and it preconditions everything automatically. You walk out to a fully charged, fully warm Tesla every single morning without thinking about it. Owners who use this feature say they have zero regen limitations, even on 15-degree mornings. Owners who do not use it say regen is limited for the first 30 to 50 miles of driving. That is 30 to 50 miles of range you are either getting back or throwing away. If this is saving you some headaches, just hit subscribe. It really does help. Number 4. Showing up to a supercharger with a cold battery. This is a road trip killer, and I have had people ask me about it more times than I can count. They are sitting at a Tesla supercharger station for over 45 minutes, wondering why the car is charging so slowly. The answer is almost always a cold battery pack. When that pack is cold, the battery management system throttles the charge rate way down to protect the cells from permanent damage. I had a guy come in frustrated about this exact thing after a road trip. He had been stopping at chargers and getting terrible speeds the whole drive. It turned out he was just pulling into superchargers without navigating to them first. Once he started setting the supercharger as his destination ahead of time, the car automatically warmed the battery pack before he arrived. A preconditioned Tesla can hit over 200 kilowatts at a supercharger and finish 10 to 80% in about 33 minutes. A cold battery in the same car might peak at 135 kilowatts and take over 40 minutes. That is almost 10 extra minutes of sitting there per stop, and on a long trip that really adds up. You want at least 30 minutes of drive time after setting the charger as your destination to get the pack up to temperature. If the charger is only a few miles away, precondition the battery before you leave because that short drive will not give the system enough time. Oh, and one more thing a lot of people do not know about yet. Since the 2025 software update, this preconditioning feature now works when you navigate to third-party chargers too. So whether you are heading to a supercharger or another charging network, the car will warm the battery automatically. Number 5. Ignoring what cold weather does to your regenerative braking. One-pedal driving is one of the best things about owning a Tesla. You lift off the accelerator and the car slows itself down while pumping energy back into the battery. In normal weather, regen recovers around 70 to 80% of the energy from slowing down. But when the battery is cold, regen gets limited or completely shut off. You will see those dashed lines on your power meter and that familiar snowflake icon. I have worked on cars where the owner drove for 15 minutes in single-digit temperatures and still had absolutely zero regen. Another person told me their regen did not kick in for over 50 miles after parking overnight in below-zero conditions. All that energy that would normally go back into your battery just gets wasted as heat through your friction brakes instead. And on top of the range hit, you are wearing down your brake pads way faster than you need to be. So what do you do about it? There is a setting buried in your pedals and steering menu called Apply Brakes when regen is limited. Turn that on. It makes the car automatically use the friction brakes to give you that same one-pedal deceleration feel, so you are not caught off guard by longer stopping distances on a cold morning. Beyond that, precondition your battery before driving so regen works from mile 1. And just take it easy for the first 15 to 20 minutes on cold mornings. Let the battery warm up through normal driving before you expect full regen performance. Number 6. If you have an LFP battery, you need to be doing more than everyone else in this video. That includes standard range Model 3 and some Model Y builds. Cold weather hits your battery harder than other chemistry types. This is something I always make a point to tell LFP owners, because not enough people talk about it. LFP packs really struggle when the temperature drops. At around -4 degrees Fahrenheit, an LFP battery operates at roughly 60% of its normal warm weather capacity. I have seen LFP owners lose 40 to 50% of their usable range in extreme cold, compared to 20 to 30% on other Tesla battery types in the same conditions. The charging penalty is even worse. A cold LFP pack at a fast charger might only accept 20 kilowatts versus over 170 kilowatts when warm. That is not a small gap. That turns a 15-minute charging stop into something that will have you sitting there way longer than you planned. Everything I just covered applies even more to you. Always use scheduled departure. Always navigate to chargers so the battery preconditions ahead of time. Charge to 100% more often in winter, because Tesla recommends that for LFP calibration anyway, and you need every bit of buffer the cold weather is trying to take from you. Keep the car plugged in every chance you get. And one more thing that saves a lot of stress. Switch your range display from miles remaining to percentage, and let the navigation system's energy planner do the math for you. The LFP voltage curve makes that mile estimate less accurate in cold weather, and staring at a number that keeps bouncing around will just stress you out for no reason. Cold weather is always going to steal some of your range. That is just the physics of how batteries work, and there is no getting around it. But the gap between a prepared Tesla owner and one who is not can easily be 50 miles or more on a single charge. If you take one thing from this video, make it scheduled departure. Set it up once, keep the car plugged in, and winter stops being something you dread. If you want to see how we keep a Tesla running strong all year round, that video is on screen now.